Alright, this is PlayStation Repair Augusta again with another video. Had a video yesterday actually. It's been a while since yesterday, but kind of getting back into the groove. As you can see from the camera footage, there is a much cleaner, more organized desk. There's still some work to be done, but it's getting there. Kind of prepping for the new desk, which hopefully that should be shipping out next month. So trying to kind of get all my parts and bins organized so that it makes that transition a little bit easier. And I'm not seeing where this live stream is kicking in. Let's check this again. Alright, it says we're streaming, but I see no video on the live dashboard unless it just didn't load. Okay, and it did load. It just took its time and required a refresh. Alright, so again, I like to now check because we've had some issues in the past where we didn't get loading or we didn't get sound, and that chirping is super annoying. Alright, let's see. One last thing, we're just going to check and make sure we have audio. That is a different video. Alright, and it says live. Just waiting. Alright, and I do hear audio, so we are good. I'm sure there's probably a way to test that without actually going live. I just have no clue how to do it. So eventually I will figure it out. I guess that's the sign of getting old, is when technology isn't intuitive to you and you actually have to work to figure it out. Alright, so what we're doing in this video. This is actually getting prepped for a Ethernet controller repair. This was a previous repair that was already completed, and we solved a electrical short that killed the HDMI. So we had a transient surge that popped that HDMI. We replaced the parts that were needed for that. There's a video on it if you want to look at it. Also, yesterday did a video where we were just probing around and looking inside of that customer's modem to see if we could determine the origin of that surge. And we're still working on some of the details, trying to figure out. RF gets into some kind of voodoo science. So high frequency signals are something that still kind of is a little bit of a unknown for me. Once I get more details, I'll do a separate video. So not to drag this thing out here, I'm just going to get right into it. This will be two parts. We'll have a second video later that will show the actual Ethernet being replaced. But for now, we are just going to do the disassembly. So if you've been curious on how to go about taking yours apart, you want to take it apart, make sure that you can get it back together, this is probably a good video for you to watch. And I either have already added or I will be adding a section just for kind of like instructional how-tos, and this video will go into that category. Alright, so the first step, and this has already been done because like I said, we've worked on this before, but I can show it to you. And hopefully, because we are on a delay here with this YouTube live stream, and I'm trying to make sure that you can see it. And I'm pretty sure you can. I'm just waiting for it to. Alright, there we go. And now it's caught up with me. Alright, so right here, there are tags. You want to take some tweezers and pull those out. You can go about removing them in different ways. These are your security tags that let the manufacturer know that it has been opened. So at this point, there's no turning back. Once you reveal those, and there's on some of those there's 2, on other ones there's 4. This is a unit that does have 4. Oh, and unlike me, I did forget to put a screw back in this top one, so we'll put that in. I only had 3 of the 4 actually inside this machine. And I know that probably at some moments this one part here is going to get a bit out of shot, and it's hard for me to prevent that just because the way the camera is set up and the way that these screws are. But once that's done, as you can see, that now gives us the ability to pop this open. Well, let's start with the most common. And this you don't even need to remove the screws for. As you can see, we put our own security sticker on the machine. We're going to take that off. If you're wondering what a security sticker is, you can see I did remove that. However, you will see the outline of the void text. So when we remove that tray, and like I said, you don't have to actually take those screws out and void any warranty. This is one thing that PlayStation does do for you, and that is that they give you the ability to service your own hard drive. So you simply just take it out, put the screws where you know you're going to be able to find them, and then pull your hard drive. Once you've done that, you're going to start to take out the rest of these, and it helps if you grab the right bit. Let's see, for a screwdriver, Phillips, I'm using a PH0. This is a T8 torque security bit, which is needed to pop these out. And we're just going to follow this path, and we're going to go ahead and hit these ones that are there. I guess it's really not necessary at this point to do that. We really only needed to hit those two. And that's because this one and this one, not sure if that part, here I'll slide it just for a moment. This one, it's at the very front, are locking this top tray area in place. So now that we've done that, and again this has already kind of been breached, so it makes it a little bit easier and doesn't show you how sometimes these can be really hard to get off. And it still doesn't want to just come, and you don't want to force it, because if you do, you're going to jack it up. So what we want to do is reach up underneath and use a thin pry tool to get in where these little hooks are at. And now I'm just going to reach under. I'm going to give myself some kind of opposing force. Come on, you sucker. Well, I said it wasn't going to show the true. Let's do this so that it stays in shot. Pain in the butt that these can sometimes become. Let's see if we get it over this hump here. That might have been part of our problem. Little locking tabs that they use for this can be really annoying. It was not meant to be serviced. Alright, so if it does not come off, if it's fighting you, you're going to have to be a little forceful with it. I'm going to try to do this without cutting myself, because you will get caught on these little metal edges. Alright. So you heard that kind of crackling sound. And what that was these locking tangs kind of coming out from their groove. And that's what you want to get done. Now that was actually easier. I just had to get enough backwards force with the right kind of upward lift in order for it to go ahead and release its little bond there. But as you can see now, we've got, let's straighten all this back out. We got some handy dandy masking tape here that it's just really, it's not the right size for all of this. I need those to be a little wider. Alright, so getting back to it, you can see now the entire surface area. But before we go ahead and do this, I like to go ahead and pop off the back. Let's stick the screws go. There we go. The back is usually much easier, as you can see, and again, that's been done before. A lot of times you will have to use that little shim, but it takes almost no force even the first time. You just need to shim it up, kind of pop your edges, and then lift from the back evenly, and it'll come loose the first time. Alright, so now you'll notice here on the back, the next step I want to do is remove the power supply. Now in order to do that, we've got 5 screws in total that we need to take out. And if you open yours up and it looks different, it's probably because you have a different model. It's pretty much the same, but the configuration is a bit different. Your screws will be in almost the exact same locations, at least until you take a few generation gaps. But you may see instead of those little tabs, you've got a bar that goes all the way across for a ground plane connect. And then once you get those 5 screws out, so you got 2 up top, 2 at the very back, and 1 in the back center. Once you get those out, you're going to need to now lift this, and you kind of got to go one side at a time until you get it up and out of its locking position, and then you can pull it and set it off to the side. Once you've done that, your next step will be to remove, here, let's use, instead of my fat fingers, we'll use tweezers. 1, 2, 3 items from the back here. And again, that may vary slightly based on your particular model. Some have the 3 ribbon cables coming off of this and then they clip straight down into. Others, it's completely different from that. So like I said, this is for first generation model, also second gen model, so SAA and SAB boards will pretty much flow exactly the same. We don't need to remove the Blu-ray player, which is what's here. So now that we have those disconnected, we can go ahead and flip over. So I guess in that sense it's not a true complete teardown because we're not going to be removing the Blu-ray, we're not taking off the antenna. We're doing a full teardown in order to remove the logic board. And beyond that, we go no further. Alright, now that we've taken out our tension brace, whatever you want to call it, for the APU, and if you're wondering what that does, is it applies pressure and downward force, and this is angled in arcs so that whatever engineer created it, it meets their design specification for applying pressure so that it pushes the board with the APU section, which is right here, and you'll see that in a moment. It pushes it down and onto the heatsink, where in between they don't actually touch. There's a medium of thermal paste, and probably great that I'm finally making this video because customers probably look at me like I'm crazy when I ask them if they've ever had their thermal paste changed. And from my experience from dealing with the PS4s is, if not before, after, and I usually don't recommend to people to break their warranty until they absolutely have to. So I technically say just wait until that first year is over. But if you're having heating issues and you want to solve it, you feel like the fan is kicking up too loud at regular times of rest, then chances are the thermal paste just wasn't any good, or for whatever reason it just dried out. And maybe you do have an overheat issue, which could be related but caused by something different. But if your thermal paste is dry and you're overheating, you definitely want to get it treated, and it's better to be proactive than reactive. In other words, get it done before it becomes a problem, which is why I tell people once your service warranty is over, I consider it a routine scheduled maintenance procedure. I tell everyone you should be getting thermal paste changed out at least once every 2 years. The more often you do it, the better for the system. I guess you could say that opening up, taking apart, messing with what's going on here could result in issues, so you want to do it as little as possible, but you also want to do it as much as possible. There's a balance between everything. But just like oiling the engine in a car, you want to oil that thermal performance of your APU to heatsink. And when I say oil, it's a metaphor. Do not pour oil on your APU, otherwise that's your problem. Alright, so once we got to this point, we're now done. And as you can see, there's not a lot of thermal paste here, but there was just enough to make good contact. And that's the thing, is we want the right amount of thermal paste. We don't want too much, we don't want too little. We want a thin but complete layer all the way across the surface. If you pull this back up, and even I make this mistake sometimes, as long as you don't get too wild with it, you're probably okay. But if you pour way too much, you'll see that it starts gobbing around the edges when you lift it back up. And you probably just want to kind of keep a mental note of how much you put on. And in the next video, seeing how we're set up for this already, I'll keep the camera in this configuration, and we can do that video after the repair is complete. Alright, let's make this a little more organized just for now. I'm going to do a quick recap. What's my orientation here? Oh, why does that feel different? Because it looks like it would go, it does go the other way. Where I got a machine that's being tricky here. Duh. I'm trying to lay it down like I want to protect or make contact with thermal paste. It goes that way. Now it fits. Alright, so now that I've got the board situated on that, and actually that's good, that was in the shot. We want to just kind of do a quick recap here. So you've got basically just the seating house, and up underneath that, this is your, you know what, we're right here. Let's take this opportunity. We're going to go ahead and at least show the underneath. And this, I gotta say, I do like how simple this is to lift. It's literally 3 screws, and that's more than sufficient for the intended purpose of what this serves. Alright, so what I wanted everyone to see, and actually, I'm glad we hooked back in this. This wouldn't have created an issue, but normally as part of my cleaning process, or maybe we didn't do the, and I may not have even remembered to offer it, but there is a standard clean, which would have been just hooking it up, and then a premium clean, which is where, you know, everything gets taken apart. Use a dip to actually remove dust from everything here, so that definitely wasn't done. And it's a little bit extra, because obviously it's more work. You're taking all this apart, you're dipping it, you're removing the electronic components, because obviously we wouldn't want to send the fan for a swim. But if you need to replace your fan, that's here. If you need to know how to remove these screws, well, you need more help than I can offer in the video. I shouldn't have to show that to you. But what I do want you to see is this, and this is great that I didn't already clean it because it makes for a good video. But I don't know if that was in frame. Let's put it here. Again, I'm on a delay, so I'm trying to work with, and yes, it was in frame because it just popped up now. Alright, so that dust, all of that, that is stuff that we want to go away, because basically, is that too much dust? No, not at all. I've blown through this already, but what we do have here is the start of something more, and I say that because dust is statically charged, so go ahead and getting rid of that now will prevent its buildup occurring faster down the road. So that's the only benefit to really getting in here. Now, if the system was super dirty, you could actually see where this was completely caked across the top, and it becomes a blanket, and that blanket gets so thick eventually that airflow can't flow through this enough or fast enough or at the right volume that it's not. This is like the radiator on a car. Heat goes here, transfers up the fins, air blows it away. If it can't get airflow, then it's not blowing that heat away, and you're going to have a slow overheat, which is actually worse than it just massively ramping up, because there is a safety circuit. It's called a thermistor, and those are attached to the board, which basically they open up as it gets too hot. So the more heat it gets, the more open it becomes, and then it breaks that circuit. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe it contracts and creates a short, but I believe it just opens up and stops the signal. I'd have to go back and look at the spec document for that. But anyways, no, it does open up because you test those to make sure there's continuity when there's not heat applied. So it opens up, breaks the circuit, shuts it down, and it's going to get to that critical temp where it goes, whoa, I need to shut down and protect myself before it's had a time to saturate the board. And what we mean by saturate is that the heat kind of slowly builds, kind of like if you stuck your hand in boiling hot water, you're going to pull it out and go, wow, that's hot, but you're not really going to be damaged. But if you put your hand in the water before you boil it and you let it just kind of slowly rise, which is how you cook lobsters, you're going to basically trick your senses, where they feel that incremental kind of change in temperature and they don't get alerted in the way that they should, and you can hurt yourself very seriously. Do not try that. I didn't tell you to do it. If you do it, that's on you. Alright, so I think I've explained pretty much everything you need to know that goes on in this little section of it. Like I said, that is it. And we're not going to remove the Blu-ray. We're not going to remove the fan. We're going to put this back, and that is it. So again, like always, hopefully you've learned something from this video. If you like what we've done in this video, or if you have any questions, feel free to comment. If you do like the video, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button. Do or don't, it's up to you. Again, we'll have another video this afternoon where we actually do the Ethernet controller replacement for this device to remove the short, and hopefully that resolves our Ethernet problem. If not, then we've got more things to look at. However, once that's done, then we'll go back and I could technically do a third video at that point where we create separation between our assembly and our repair and our reassembly, just so that people can find exactly the video they need. So I'll probably do it that way. Again, that's it for today, or for now. We will have more later to come. So if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the whatever that buzzer is that lets you know and get notifications, and you'll get alerted when those videos come on later today.